Hi everyone. Hi. Right, okay, so this is take 2 for us because we thought we were being filmed. So hopefully someone's out there watching this live. Yeah, so let us know that you're actually getting this now. So tonight I'm with Trip, and I feel like I already know you because I've actually done the interview and we realised it wasn't recording.
Cool.
So we'll go take 2 right now. We've
Done.
got a new producer here that's taking Tiana's place tonight, and she's never done it before, so we'll just, go with the flow, right?
Yeah, we go with the flow. Where is he?
So I've got with me today Kevin, Trip, Henry. So I'm going to call you Trip because you feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's no problem.
And we're cool, and I feel like we've already lived this whole thing because now I'm going to say to you, okay, Trip, how did you get the name Trip?
Well, that was something that happened years ago when a group that I was involved with in Bikers Limited, and the girls used to always pull my pants down because I used to carry on like a virgin, and they always used to keep it up, trying to put their hands in my pants and carrying on like gooses. And I've come around through the pub, and a lady came out of the ladies' toilets, and I fell against her, grabbed her. We've ended up on the floor, and she was actually wearing a mini skirt, and her legs went in the air. And
Oh
then
no!
An associate.
You didn't give me that detail the last time we recorded it.
I didn't go too far with that one, but an associate of the husband came racing. He saw what was going on, dropped the drinks coming from the bar, pulled out a stub nose 38 and wanted to shoot me. And someone, a good friend of mine, yelled out, "No, he just tripped." So I got the name of Trip.
And it's stuck ever since.
And everyone's called me
So
Trip.
is that really okay that I call you Trip
You
then?
can do whatever you like.
Okay, all
You
right.
can call me
Because I'll
Barry
probably
if you're
forget.
comfortable.
I'll probably forget to call you Kevin. I'll probably
Yeah,
that
everyone does.
name Trip. Now that
Yeah.
you've told me the story. Okay, so that's something a little bit light that we've kind of entered into now before we get into the heavy duty.
The jovial stuff.
Yeah, the real and about life, and because we've previously spoken about all this, I feel like I know the story and I'm absolutely heartbroken. And so let's talk about you as a young child, and it was all about your mother, really, how aggressive and traumatic and
Violent.
shocking, violent
Yeah,
relationship. Yeah, so she was a big woman, was she?
Yeah, she was a large, powerful, strong, a very good fighter. Like, she could use a fist.
So this is a woman, your
mum. This is a woman, yeah. This is a
your
mother.
mum using
Well,
her fist.
I don't actually call her a mother. She said to me once, "Do you think I'm a bad mother?" And I said, "No, you can't put those two words together. You can't use mother in that sentence."
Yeah.
Because I was always pretty cheeky. I was always the favourite, so I could get away with a lot of stuff. And as I got older, I could square her up because I had no fear. She'd already done enough damage that she couldn't do any more anyway. So.
Did she use a fist on you?
Oh yeah. She was a very, very brutal kind of woman.
So, as a young child, she would...
I think so, yeah. My earliest memories, like everyone says you got memories at 5, but I just remember being screamed and scared, and you're always timid, and then as I got older I got bolder, and like I say, something must have just switched over that I could get away with a lot of stuff.
So you're one of 3?
One of 3. I've got an older sister and an older brother, 2 years apart.
And we also spoke about your young brother, so...
Older brother,
sorry, yeah, your older brother, in relation to him being 2 weeks old and someone actually found her.
Yep.
So tell me that little story.
Well, my father's sister and my father were sharing a unit with their newly married spouses, and 3 of them, my mother had stayed home with my brother. The other, my father's sister was pregnant, and they heard the ruckus. They've come in and they said that they tried to separate the mother from a 2-week-old baby, and she was shaking the living, really violent, neck wobbling, a 2-week-old baby.
Oh my God, this is your
my
brother.
My oldest brother, and she was just
and he was
shaking,
2 weeks old.
screaming, yelling, carrying on. Probably over something that he'd done, like pooed himself or something, like a normal baby thing maybe. But they tried to separate it. She punched on with closed fist.
Oh my goodness!
And my father was a very strong man as well, but knocked my father down and then buggered off for 2 weeks, and the wet nurse had to come in from Crown Street and feed.
So she went for 2 weeks, and you got
Disappeared.
no idea.
No one could tell me where she went. Just disappeared in the cross somewhere. And that, just 2 weeks with a 2-week-old baby. Yeah. And we didn't know about this story until I was 40-something, 45.
And your young brother, or your older brother, sorry, I've just got
I'm
to
the
get
youngest, yeah.
that. Yeah. Your older brother, you know, after 2 weeks, so was he fine after that? Like, did he pull through okay?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think he's a bit mental myself, but, you know, he's got a lot of psychological problems. He's in the army and he went to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, and they said, if your mother is half as bad as what you're telling us, then that's evil. You want to stay right away from it. And he actually rang me and asked me if I could speak to the psychiatrist to verify some of the stories, because
Oh wow, because no one will believe it.
no one believes you. Like, it's just unnatural. It's unheard of. I look at my mother, and I have absolutely no feeling. Same as my sister. She's just a person. And like I said before, I've told people.
So your sister has no feelings towards your mum. Like you have feelings towards your sister.
Very
like
strong.
You're close, yeah.
We're very close. I don't have any connection with my brother. I've got no connection with my mother. I love my father dearly. He was a beautiful man, but it's a really strange thing. I've seen people say that you can't say bad things about your mother, but I used to tell people that she was a housekeeper who married my father, that my biological mother actually died, and that was just a coping kind of mechanism that I could say to people, I don't like her because she's not actually my mother. She's the cleaner. She's the housekeeper. So that was.
So she was a bit of a clean freak too, wasn't she?
Very, very clean. Like, everything had to be spotless. When she sold the house, the real estate was amazed at the place, how old it was, but how clean it was. Every Wednesday, everything coming out of the cupboards, everything was washed down. The fridge was done on a certain day. We had, she had, every cup had its position. So even as a small child, I knew to stir her up. I'd move the brown and the green cup or the blue cup, and I'd turn the handles 20 degrees. She'd come home at 10:30 at night, and then within 8 or 9 minutes, we'd all be out getting harassed and screamed. And
so you're young children?
Yeah, young children. Still, I don't know at what age I started doing this, but my sister and my brother used to hate it because we'd all get rousted. And then,
so she'd pull you out of bed in the middle of the night?
Oh, yeah, easy, yeah.
And like belt you or just...
Yeah, occasionally we'd get belted.
Because you moved the cup?
Yeah, because the cup handle would be turned like 20 degrees from where she'd left it. And I used to hide the feather duster, which she used all the time to clean. That went behind the fridge. So she used to welt us with that. But always in positions where the bruises wouldn't show with shorts or sleeves. It was always around the body and the buttocks and all that sort of stuff.
So did your father have any idea what was going on?
We don't know. We don't know if he must have had some sort of idea, but we just don't know. He was...
And he was a very kind person, wasn't he, your
very
dad?
Very gentle, very, very astute, intelligent. At the supermarket, he would tell the people in the old days when they do the total,
yeah.
He could tell them the total by the time they got to the end. Very intelligent. But he worked 3 jobs, so he was very rarely at home. And when he was at home, he was in the bird aviaries down the back, because I don't think he liked his family. Like, we were pretty ratty. We were a pretty shitty family. We were well hated on the block.
So, which is really sad, isn't it? But I mean, if anyone knew what was going on behind closed doors, they maybe would have an understanding.
Well, I spoke to some neighbours recently, and they were sympathetic and very sorrowful, but like they said, there's nothing you can do. It's not their business, it's not their family.
And way back then, people just didn't stick their nose in.
No. You didn't interfere, it wasn't done. It's just not the done thing.
So your brother, like when we were talking before, you were telling me about how your mum never fed him. She just wouldn't feed him.
Yeah, years later, one of the neighbours before she passed away said to me, I had a conversation about your brother used to turn up and eat the house just about empty. And she asked him, doesn't your mother feed you? Which was, everyone says that to kids. And he used to say, no, she doesn't.
They didn't believe him.
She didn't. My sister and I would sit down for a meal, and my brother would sit down to an empty plate. So no one would believe him. Everyone thought he was a liar, and that's how he was basically brought up and treated.
So is he really like malnourished and tiny, or...?
He's a pretty small build at any rate, but I think that was because we believed that my mother was made pregnant by her stepfather. My stepfather, from what I've been told, is a very skinny sort of bloke. But my brother's probably closer to my stepfather than anyone else.
So you believe that your brother is a product of your mum and her stepfather?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, because when you look at the marriage, and we were never allowed to have birth certificates. When we finally got our birth certificates, we could work out where the pregnancies were, and then we picked it together where they met, when they met, and she had to be at least 4 months pregnant when she met my father. So you just the basic.
So what do you mean you weren't
mathematics.
allowed to have a birth certificate?
We were only ever allowed to get extracts. My mother refused to allow us to get any kind of birth certificate information. My sister went overseas and she was only allowed to get an extract. When I went overseas the first time, she was trying to con me into getting an extract, and I got a full document, and my sister and I went down and we just went through it all, and then my sister said, look at the dates, and that's how we worked it out.
And you also believe that you were a product of an incestuous relationship between your mother and
Her brother.
her brother?
Yeah, that's what we believe, yeah. Yeah, because when my father had his stroke a long time before she bashed him and killed him, or he died because of his injuries, something happened where he had a stroke, and we believe that there was some sort of sexual relationship between them, because my sister told me when I was 38 or 40, I had no idea about this. I thought my Uncle Murray was a great bloke. But she said that she'd come home from school, so it must have been high school, and my mother and her brother were in the shower together. And my sister told me that our mother, used to put her brother in bed with my sister. Well, I didn't know about any of that. I thought he was a great bloke, and I couldn't understand why my sister hated him.
Oh dear.
And it was 40 years before she told me. So, yeah, I let a lot of relatives, when I got married, they didn't come to the wedding because I specifically wanted one of the few relatives that ever turned up, my Uncle Murray, and then I found out all these years later that, you know, he was basically molesting my sister.
And there was something we're also talking about is that what your mother used to do, like school holidays and that, she used to send you off to stay with a male.
Yeah, a male. He was actually a work colleague of my father. He was a compositor. And I clearly remember the police turning up on one of those occasions and saying something about the children had to put clothes on because we were kept naked the whole time.
So how long would you go there for?
We would be there 3 weeks maybe, like the school holidays, whatever it was.
So with no clothes on, naked?
I can remember...
With a strange man?
Yeah, I can remember spending an entire, like, days and days, and then we'd put swimmers on and we'd go down to the beach at McMaster's Beach, and then we would come home and then we'd be stripped off and showered, and then that was it. There was no clothes, and curtains would be drawn and all that sort of stuff. And I can't even remember if my sister was there, but I know that I was there, and I know my brother was there. And there was molestation going on, of course. That was all part of it. And we believed that she'd do that so that she could have sex with this bloke. So this fella's father, when they first got married, all the three people came home and caught my mother having sex with this fella's father, who was a 70-year-old man.
Oh,
and they actually walked in, and there they were in the lounge room going for it. She was just a bent unit. But we think she was just twisted and must have been really disturbed and tortured as a young girl. But you've got a choice to make. You can either go down that path or you can break that chain.
Absolutely.
And my sister and I, we chose to break that chain. And
Good on you.
my sister's got a fantastic relationship with her kids. They're like best friends.
That's wonderful, isn't
Yeah.
it? So your brother, your older brother, he got into drugs?
We believe so, yeah. We believe he got into heroin and marijuana, and, you know, he's always been troubled. We were always in trouble at school. We were always hated. It wouldn't be uncommon for the headmaster to call us up at the beginning of school because of something we'd done in the past. I remember my first day at high school, and I got caned 6 times, and I thought, right, we're on. So it was, let's go brutal. But they didn't realise that they couldn't do anything that was worse than what had already been done to me. This was pathetic. Like getting caned was just a joke. That was nothing. You know, it was just...
Did your brother ever talk to you about things?
No, neither did my sister. None of us did.
And the other thing too that we spoke about before was your brother broke his leg when he was about 17.
Yep.
And just tell my viewers where he slept and what happened to him.
Well, my father was into breeding birds, and we had two bird aviaries, a large one. It's a rectangle with half of it covered in wire, and the other half was enclosed with cages and a table to work on. And they put him into the bird aviary in winter. I remember when he came home, so he was stuck in the bird aviary, and I don't remember food being taken to him. I don't remember him coming up to the house to wash. We had an outside toilet. We had a pan toilet, so I suppose he went to the toilet. But I remember I remember seeing him coming in with a broken leg and crutches.
And they put him in the bird aviary
in
to
a bird
live
aviary
with a broken leg,
yeah,
and that's where he lived.
And that's where he stayed.
At 17.
At 17 with a broken leg, yeah. Because he'd moved out, you know, a bit before that, and he was off the rails, as they say. So that was pretty brutal, and it was pretty damn cold, like winter time, and it's all open. So when the wind blew and there was rats in the aviary,
Concrete floor.
Concrete floor, yeah, a stone floor that my father did. Because Dad could put his hand to anything, mechanics, carpentry, just a very talented, very sweet man. But I don't think he could confront any of this kind of behaviour.
So, did your mother bash your father?
Yeah, we believe so, especially after he had his stroke. We don't. I can't remember any incidents as a child, but when I'd moved out and I'd just been married and Dad had his stroke, I know that he was starting to be abused. You could tell. So I mean that history just kept increasing. So
there was one incident where he was in hospital. Did he lose his eyesight or something?
Yeah, I got a phone call that Dad had been put into a hospital near the border of Queensland and New South Wales, where they sold the house and moved to, because after his stroke he just wasn't coherent. He couldn't verbalise very well, and Mum had sold the house and blamed him for that, but he couldn't express himself properly. He could speak, and yeah, that was a bit of a hard time, because my brother went to the hospital when he had his stroke, and my brother just fell apart. But you know, I suppose I'm a bit stronger. But she'd obviously bashed him. He'd gone to the hospital, and the nurses asked me if he'd ever been in a nursing home, because every time there was movement, he'd put his hands up defensively to protect himself. And we discussed, and I told them what she was like, and they put an order in to the hospital saying that she had to have supervised visits, and she was really upset about that.
She didn't like that at all.
Didn't like it one bit. No, very. And it, you know, she was in there crying, and I just said to her, you know, like, cut the crocodile tears, and it was instant tap off. But that's what she's like. She's, you know, just psychopathic, I think you'd want to call it.
And then, like, further on down the track too, your father had a stroke, and you believe that she bashed him, and...
Yeah, it was, when we were kids as well, a prime example is we'd be eating, and if we didn't eat quick enough, then everything would be removed. So you'd have half a potato and you'd be still going for the food while it was whipped off, and it was...
So you had to eat very quickly?
Oh yeah, like I'm a pig. You know, everyone comments about how quickly I eat, but that's how I was brought up. That was just... And we had to have good table manners. So we had no elbows on the table, we had to use pinkies, but we had to eat like pigs. And I know.
And meanwhile, your brother's not even getting fed.
No, and that's quite common. And I used to do things like eat a chop, throw it over my shoulder, and she'd be behind me waiting, and I'd get slapped over the back of the head and abused, and I'd get the next chop, chomp, 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 chomp with my fingers, throw it over my shoulder, whack, 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 just to piss her off. And that used to be common. So we believe that if Dad, after his stroke, he was very childlike. If he hadn't eaten his food, we'll guarantee you that she would have been slapping into him. But she abused him and left him. The ambulance, eventually she called an ambulance when she basically assaulted him to a point where he never recovered from his injuries. The ambo said that he would have had to have been laying there for at least 45 minutes for his fingernails to go that colour, blue, and his lips were going blue. She's probably gone in, you're all quiet, and been abusive and carrying on, realised that she's basically killed him, and then rang the ambos, and they got an intensive care ambulance to come and take him to the hospital. That's how serious it was. So 2 ambulances were called. But when he had his stroke, he was...
So did they say, sorry, but
yeah.
Did they say that the ambulance and the medical staff, did they say that if in fact he had the ambulance had got there sooner, that maybe he would be alive?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So she's just sat there and waited for him
to
get to that...
Or just walked out and made herself a cup of coffee or done something else and just left him laying there.
And he died?
That's what we believe, yeah. That's. I think the ambulance was when the intensive care got there, that's what kept him alive. But my brother was so terrified of my mother that we drove around the hospital for an hour. I could see the hospital, and I've come up from Sydney, and I said to him, there's the hospital, just go straight to the hospital. And he drove around for almost an hour, and he couldn't stop the car because he knew that my mother was in that building.
How old were you then?
Oh, 40s, I suppose. Stephen would have been 50-something, maybe. like old adults. We were serious old.
Has he
old
had
people.
like has your brother had normal relationships like with women and?
Yeah, he's been married to his wife for 34 years. My sister's been married to her husband long term, and I don't talk about my relationships. So that's a taboo subject. But they're all decent, good people. But he has a lot of trouble with his children. And I spoke to my sister about saying some of the things, but I haven't spoken to my brother. But my niece introduced me at her 21st birthday party to one of her ex-bosses as, "This is Uncle Kev, and he's nothing like Dad." So I don't think they have a very good relationship with their father. But I tried to make amends and tried to get back in contact with him, and he'd ring me up drunk all the time. And when I had the motorcycle accident, I'm laying in a bed with a broken back, and I'm getting 10 o'clock at night. I'm getting these drunken phone calls, and he's swearing and being abusive. And I said, "Mate, that's just it. Like, I'm sacking you. If you ring me again, I'm going to send 3 blokes up to bash you. Just, you're not doing it. That's it." Because I was not in the physical state where I could have done it.
But you had a situation where you had a problem with alcohol too when you were young, weren't you?
Yeah, very.
Like how old were you then?
Easy 13. I lived about 3 streets down from the Royal Antler, and right at the very top of the hill you'd have the Royal Antler, and next door to that was the RAF base, and their mess was looking down over the drive-in, and they had the big glass window. And what I'd do is I'd sneak up with a couple of mates, and we'd get all the dregs out of the bottles at the back of the pub. We'd make a jungle juice.
Oh wow!
And then we'd break into the RAF base, go underneath the shed up to watch all the movies. So we'd be sitting there drinking all these dregs of all these drinks, picking all the.
And you were 13.
Yeah, 13. Yeah, and people used to give you grog for sex as well. So that was, you do that occasionally, so you can get some stuff. And
You did that.
yeah, like that was. You make mistakes because you don't know what's kind of normal, and the people that my mother would give us to would bribe you with alcohol, and they'd get you drunk, so that you're a lot more, people could abuse you a lot more easily. Like I can remember being a small kid, maybe in primary school, and I was given to a bloke who we went for a drive, and I was in pyjamas, and when I've come home and I've got blood on the back of my pyjamas, I've been given a beating because I've bled over clean pyjamas, and then forced to go and wash and clean myself up. But
and was that a normal, like that was a normal occurrence? Like was...
Well, it wouldn't have been regular, but I just remember that. I mean, I thought it was very strange, even as a small child, I thought it was very strange that a stranger could turn up to our house late at night, and it could have been 8 o'clock maybe, I don't know, and then I'd be taken off for a drive. A small child in pyjamas, just taken off for a drive somewhere. I mean, that's demented. That's just not normal.
It's like a bad movie.
If it was a script, you'd throw it in the bin. And if you try to tell someone, they look at you with shock and horror, and they gasp, and they no, that's you're making that up. That's not possible. No woman would do that. No mother would do that.
Well, I'm a mother, and I can't ever imagine. Like this is really getting me. I just can't imagine the life that you've had, and you.
Well, I mean, it paints a black picture, but I had some good times. Like my sister and I'd jump on a scooter and she'd jump on a push bike, and we'd ride off for weekends, and we had a lot of good times. Like I got a lot of good memories out of my childhood. It's not all bad for me. Like I can remember tying up my neighbour and throwing him in a dam. And I used to be very.
Thanks for making me laugh.
Well, there used to be I used to do a lot of very destructive stuff. Like Christmas time, we had a park 3 houses down from where we lived, and kids would turn up with their toys, and I'd go and get my baseball bat and I'd break them. And that to me was amusing. That was just, you don't know any better. You're unhappy and you're hurt and you're feeling angry, so you take it out on everyone around you.
What was Christmas like for you in your home?
It was pretty crappy. When my sister and my brother left, because I was the youngest, I was basically left on my own. They would go off down to the Hawkesbury and do fishing, and I'd be just sitting at home on my own doing nothing. And later on, when I became employed, when I finished my apprenticeship, because I had 2 jobs as an apprentice, which was illegal, I used to work Christmas Day because I hated it. Absolutely hated Christmas. And I still today, I think we had a Christmas tree maybe once, but it was all show. It was just all pretend. price tags on the outside and look, I bought this thing at $40 and I'd drop it and break it or jump on it. I didn't want anything from her. I loathed it. I used to crawl up to her at night because I used to, at 12 I used to go in the car and go pick her up from work, which was down the end of the street.
So you used to drive the car at 12?
Yeah, well, I'd stolen the first car at about 14. Drunk.
Wow, drunk.
Drunk. Drove all the way out to the Parramatta to the Brickies. This Ford Custom line, which was a heap. It was a terrible thing to steal, but they were easy to hotwire. So, and the guy was a drunk. I was working in a skating rink, and he was just a drunk. And when we'd get him drunk enough, we'd just steal his car and go out hooning around. But it was good fun. Like, met a lot of people, and I was a stocky kind of kid, so I was drinking. I could go to the pub when I was 15. They thought I was 18. When I turned 18, my father took me to the pub for a beer, and the barman says, "Hey, g'day Kev, how you going?"
Oh, so they knew
you want
already.
the usual? Because I used to drink black and tan. It's like a dash of stout and an old beer. That was my beer. That's what I used to drink.
At 14 or?
At 14, 15. And no one knew, because I'd turn up in a car. I'd go to the pub in a car and get out and go and have a few beers, get the car and go home.
Wow.
It was just crazy. It was insane.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, you know, like...
I got pulled over by the police once and sent home. I got escorted. I was unconscious laying on the main highway.
So unconscious from alcohol?
From alcohol.
Yeah.
And they put me in the car, and I don't know, I must have had something on me, a school bus pass or something with a name or an address, and they've taken me home and dropped me off, and the big sergeant slapped me about, give me a kick in the arse, and you can't do this, and I was paralytic. And I also was at a party where I got that drunk, and I drunk that much with some bikers. They took, because I was really cold, and they took me home and put me on the porch, banged on the door and racked off. And my father found me, because I'd only heard about the story later on, and when I was at work with Dad, and he said he put me in a cold bath and then slowly turned the water up to get my core temperature back up. So I nearly died from alcohol, and that would have been 14, 15, something like that. But you become very destructive.
Yeah, that's true.
You just don't know how to deal with it. You don't know. Like these things play with you, and triggers. Sometimes you'd smell something or you'd hear something, and that would just set me off. Like I'd be at the pub, and someone would look at me, and I'd just go insane. And being a burly sort of strong kid, you could do a lot of damage. It was just out of control.
Mm. And you know, I know we've spoken about your childhood, and you know, I'm certainly affected by your story, and I can't even imagine living with those memories.
Well, like I say, they're not all bad. I mean, there were good times in there, but you only ever remember the bad things. They're the most impacting.
And then you've moved on from there, like, and you ride a bike, and
yep.
Then I've heard that you've had an accident. So what happened there? You broke your back and your neck.
Yeah, I was going to work. That was in 2008, and 10 years ago, and I was turning right, stopped in the line of traffic, and a P-plate of texting hit me doing 90 in the 70 zone.
Texting?
Yeah, we believe she was texting, but there was no charges. They didn't want to charge her. It was only because I'm in the Motorcycle Council of New South Wales that I was able to contact the Minister of Police and pursue it and get her charged. She said that she has had an epileptic seizure, but there was no medical evidence asked for. There was nothing proven. And it took a battle to get her licence revoked for 2 years. And they were really miffed about it. And the local area commander rang me up at home when I'm laying in bed, and I'm all twisted and all buggered up, and he says, "I hope you're satisfied." And I said, "Mate, come round and say it to me face in my bed." They're just unbelievable.
So you broke your neck and your back?
Yep. But they were stable fractures, so that was good. That's a good thing. So
today you live with an injury that gives you a bit of grief, doesn't it?
Yeah, when people tell me not to do something, that inspires me, and I do it.
I can imagine you being like that.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, I used to do a lot of bushwalking and caving and canyoning, and we'd get to a certain spot, and my actual rover mate said to me, "You've got to go down this ledge, come across here and swing." I said, "Well, where's the end? We've got to get to this down in here in this black spot." And it's black, you can't see anything. He said, "You can't jump because there could be logs and trees," and there were logs and trees in this area. They all get washed down. And I just said, "You want me down there?" Done. Never even thought of it. Just leaped straight off. Just didn't give a rat's. And
talking like adventure and stuff, you recently sailed on a Viking ship.
Yeah, brought a Viking ship up from Mount Franklin River up to Eden, and then I disembarked at Eden because I had to get back to work anyway. But
And where did that Viking ship come from?
that came from Russia. That was 14,500 nautical miles, and it's not a. It looks a bit like a long ship, but it's actually a Nar. It's the cargo version, because these guys were sailing it around the world and they broke it sort of in bits and pieces. So it was a bit damaged. You know, it was built out of Corellia pine, which is a softwood, not designed for open ocean, but they did 14,500 nautical miles.
Wow.
And we came across Bass Strait. At one stage I had one of the crew members from Victoria when I was on the helm, and we've had power out and we're navigating by stars and looking at the pennant with the wind. And it was
So hang on a minute, so you've navigated by the stars?
Yeah, like when all the navigation went down with the lack of power, you sail by stars anyway. I was practicing because I'd read a few books beforehand and I'd been shown but didn't understand it, so I was practicing and we stayed online, and I got one of the crew members, and as we're sailing along, he's looking at the back of the boat and I'm looking forward into the stars, and as I'm looking at him, I'm watching him look at the swell going up and then to feel the boat, because he could see the waves coming up behind us, and it's 30 odd foot waves. So then the boat starts to tip up, and I never looked back. I looked at him and I could tell how big the waves were by how high his head was going, so that was amusing.
And something that I found amusing, just with our little conversation, you're talking about Putin and what happened with...
Oh, bringing on the...
Yeah, so just tell us that little story, because I think it's pretty cool. Although, are we allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, well, no one said not to.
Well, that's right, so let's talk about it. That's
Well,
what this is about.
Allegedly...
Allegedly, okay. We'll use that word, allegedly, just to cover our butts here.
When I was in... I rejoined the crew a few years later. They built another boat and they sailed across Russia, down to St. Petersburg from a big lake, Lake Onega and Lake
And
Volga.
then you did this trip, didn't you?
Yeah, I did the trip. I turned up and I rigged the boat. The boat was supposed to be ready to be put in the water. When we've turned up, there's no prop, there's no... One mast was in it. The fellow from Tasmania, he was the carpenter. He had to work on the boat. We modified, redid everything. I went down to the museum, rigged the boat from stern to bow, did all the rigging. Didn't know what I was doing, but because I can tie a lot of knots and I'm handy with ropes, that worked pretty well.
Well, thankfully.
That's what I thought, because it was just given to me. But that's when I was on the Viking ship. I taught everybody how to tie knots, so they just assumed.
Where did you learn?
Through scouting.
Oh, okay.
Through scouting and a general interest. That was just something that I enjoy doing. I do knot boards as well. So we've sailed across down to St. Petersburg. My visa's run out. I had to go to Estonia. Then I've gone down to Finland and met the boat.
Wow,
We've
what a trip.
Come back up to Estonia and we're in Tallinn. And I didn't know that there was some sort of conflict with the French, the English, and the Swiss. And they were coming up. Russia was doing something with an island, or they were trying to annex something. But there was an aggressive naval presence from the Russians, and the British sailed up to confront them with the French and their allies. And I had no idea about this. We hadn't seen a newspaper. So the British turned up and we haven't had any Marines under sail, under canvas for 180 years and blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to them, there's a British accent. Like, I've been away for 2 months. Oh, this is great, there's British here. And they've said to me, oh, do you mind if we come on the boat and get a photo? Come on board. Everyone's welcome. And there's a photo of the 3 soldiers holding the flag.
So which flag are we talking about?
The Russian flag.
The Russian flag. So the British soldiers are holding the Russian flag
on the boat that Mr. Putin had put money into and was very interested in, because he rides with the Night Wolves, which is a big motorcycle club, who sponsored the boat. Great guys. And of course this is all on Instagram. So British,
you've got the photo and you've taken that photo and you've put it on your Instagram.
It was actually the Major. The Major got me to take the photo with his phone, and I took a photo as well. And the Major posted it, and of course I've posted the same photo. And next minute, Mr. Putin allegedly is in contact with one of the members of the crew, telling us to put that photo down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so...
So you're not allowed...
he was quite upset that here's the British soldiers in a defiant pose, and I'm thinking that's an odd pose, and they're like, this is up yours, and they're hanging onto the flag like they've conquered and they've come, you know, and it was just...
Jeez, I wouldn't mind posting that photo up on the comments in this interview.
Well, I can send it to you.
All right, let's do that. We'll post up so you know exactly the photo that we're talking about. You know, just to get a bit of a giggle. And
you'll probably get me shot. Like, I'll probably be poisoned now.
No, you won't.
Someone will sneak up behind me and rub poison in my face.
Oh no, don't be. Oh no, yes. Oh, I go. Oh no, yes. I know what I mean. You know, it's the same as yeah, no.
But I mean, yeah, they were a bit upset about it, but I mean, I had no idea. And the British gave us a whole pile of their rations, and the Russians got stuck in it and ate it. And then we sailed up to Latvia, and I left the boat because it was just so wild. It was under ballast, and it was just too high in the water. But it's going around the world, and I won't rejoin it. Great experience, what I did. But
wow, I mean, your whole life is one hell of an experience, really.
I've done some interesting things, and yeah, I think you've just got to get out and have the best shot that you can. Like, you're only here once.
Well, that brings to me to, this part of the show now is where I ask, the people that have been on the couch to, maybe if there's someone at home watching this show tonight and, they've lived through a similar situation, or they know of someone that has, and, and they say, like, they might be just sitting at home watching this right now and saying, wow.
You lucky buggers.
But that they're sitting at home.
Get a life.
So what I do is I ask the people that I interview to look down the camera and to maybe leave a message of hope, that, maybe just something positive that you've got to share. Because to me, you're a very jovial, happy person. Yep. Even though there's been that dark side of life, you come across to me as a very happy, kind of jovial person to me. Yep. And our conversations that we've had. And I think maybe, a word of hope to someone that maybe be watching tonight that, they just might want to hear something from you. So do you think you could just look at the camera over there and...
But don't forget, I can be very abusive and very aggressive as well. So it's not all nice and pie. I pick what time I'm nice.
Well, I'm glad it's this time that you're nice that I'm here.
I mean, there's no point. I mean, you're not doing anything offensive.
Mm.
But my thing to say is that an anger management fellow that I went to, because I was going to lose my job driving garbage truck, he said to me, change your past, because he worked out what was wrong. When I sat down, I was all gristle and hanging onto the chair, and he said to me, what's wrong is your childhood, what happened to you in the past, change it. And of course, I said to him, how can I do that? That's impossible. You can't do that. And he said, right, don't let your past govern your present. Get over it, you can't change it, move on, and do something good. Just be positive. And the other thing that I always think of is, I remember seeing a show where a fella jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and survived. He was suiciding, and he said as his toes left the rail, he yelled out, I've changed my mind, I want to live. And I often think, how many people have suicided, and I've lost a couple of mates that have suicided, how many people have got to that point, they're 110% committed, and they've changed their mind. Mm. So before you do anything, think about it.
Yeah, good point. So thank you for sharing everything that you've shared tonight with me, and thanks for that really positive message. And each and every week I have amazing people that join me and just keep supporting what I'm doing here, and I'd like to thank a few of them tonight. So Reese Livermore, thank you so much for watching. Kerry Morks, thank you very much to Louise Ann Poole, Margaret Moffat, Larry Lowe, Kat Smith, Angela Waters, Pamela McGully, Graham Luck, Lexi Norris. It's a bit hard to say. We're reading this, by the way, and someone's fingers are just kind of over the words.
No, you're doing a good job. Doing a good job.
Naomi McIntyre, Karen, what's that one?
It was Karen Dessa.
Dessa? Yeah. Martika Evans. Thank you, Marty. Jessica Wilcox. Phil Barrington. Thank you so much, Phil. I really appreciate you tuning in tonight. Laurie Wright. Thank you, Laurie. Jocelyn Lease. Thanks, Jocelyn, a good school buddy of mine. And Sheila Pat. Thank you so much for, just tuning in and, like I say, supporting what I do and, so that I'm living my dream. Thank you all very much for joining us, and I'll see you next week, Wednesday night, 7:30. Bye for now. Know that you're going to be okay.
Stay strong.